Kids Classics presents.
A long time ago, a beautiful girl named Ella lived in a house with her stepmother and two stepsisters. One stepsister had a high, shrill voice that went all the way up to theirs. And the other stepsister had a low, harsh voice that went all the way down to theirs. The two stepsisters were always dressed in beautiful gowns, and they did no work around the house. But as for poor Ella, she was always ordered about by her stepmother.
Make the bed. Yes, stepmother. Wash the dishes, scrub the floor. Yes, stepmother. And when you're all through, sweep out all the cinders in the fireplace. Yes, stepmother.
Yes, sweep out all the cinders in the fireplace. The poor girl was always sweeping cinders, and the rags she wore as clothes were so full of cinders that everyone called her Cinderella. One day, the king announced a grand ball at his palace. All the girls in the kingdom were invited. The stepsister with a high, shrill voice, and the stepsister with a low, harsh voice, each dressed in their finest. But as for Cinderella...
Cinderella, you're not going to the ball. You're staying home among the cinders where you belong.
Poor Cinderella. She wept as if her heart would break. For she knew the king had a son, a handsome prince.
Oh, how I'd love to dance with him.
At that moment, there was a flash of light, and a little old woman stood before Cinderella.
Who are you?
The little old lady winked an eye and said, "I'm your fairy godmother. You shall go to the ball." The fairy godmother waved her magic wand. In a twinkling, Cinderella's rags were changed into a beautiful gown.
Oh.
On her feet were glass slippers.
Oh.
And a pumpkin growing outside the cottage door changed into a splendid carriage with horses and footmen.
Oh, fairy godmother, how can I ever thank you? Now I can go to the ball.
As the carriage drove off, the fairy godmother shouted a warning. "Cinderella, you must leave the ball when the clock strikes 12. For on the stroke of 12, your gown will turn back to rags, and your carriage will be a pumpkin once again." When Cinderella entered the ballroom, everyone turned to look at her. She was so dazzling and so beautiful that the prince asked her to dance with him at once. All evening long, the prince danced with Cinderella. The stepsister with a high, shrill voice and the stepsister with a low, harsh voice each tried to attract the prince's attention. But he had eyes for no one but Cinderella. Then suddenly, Cinderella heard the clock striking in the tower. It was striking 12.
Oh, I must go. Goodbye, Prince, and thank you for dancing with me. Goodbye.
The prince called after her, but Cinderella kept running, out of the ballroom, into the courtyard of the castle. She ran so fast that she lost one of her glass slippers, but she had no time to turn back. Past the gate she went to where her carriage stood, and just as she reached it, the clock struck 12. In a twinkling, her beautiful gown was rags again, and the carriage had turned back into a pumpkin. Back to her cottage walked Cinderella to take her place among the cinders as before. But the prince had not forgotten her. He had found the glass slipper in the castle courtyard, and he was determined to find that beautiful girl that he danced with, for he wished to marry her. Find the girl whose foot fits this glass slipper, ordered the prince of his court messengers, and when you find her, she shall become my wife. through the length and breadth of the land went the messengers, and finally arrived at the cottage where Cinderella lived. The stepmother greeted the messengers at the door.
I have 2 daughters. Surely one of them has a foot that fits the glass slipper?
First, the stepsister with a high, shrill voice tried the slipper on, but it was much too small. Then the stepsister with a low, harsh voice tried the slipper on, but it was much too big. The messenger was about to leave when Cinderella shouted,
Wait, let me try it on. You? Go back to the cinders where you belong.
The stepmother tried to chase Cinderella away, but the messenger had his orders. He was to try the slipper on every girl in the kingdom. Cinderella took off her old, dirty wooden shoe and poised her foot above the glass slipper. And then in slipped her foot, fitting perfectly. When Cinderella was brought before the prince, he knew at once that she was the girl he had danced with. For despite her ragged clothes, her beauty and warm heart shone through. Soon they were married and lived happily ever after.
Curiosity.
Ow.
Curiosity.
Ow.
Can't explain 'cause I don't know why, but a pussy cat will snoop and pry and risk 9 lives to satisfy his curiosity.
Ow.
Hey, Grandpa, look! I caught a bottle.
Don't open it.
Why not?
Well, there's no telling what might be in it.
That's why I want to open it.
Casper, the trouble with us cats is we've got too much curiosity. Been getting us in a peck of trouble ever since the first kitten was born.
When was that, Grandpa?
Over 1,000,000 years ago. And you know the funny thing? That kitten was fishing one day, just like you. And he caught a bottle, just like you. And he was curious,
Just like me?
just like you. And he grabbed the cork and opened the bottle. Out of the bottle there came with a puff a small cloud of smoke. And oddly enough, it got bigger and bigger. It grew and it grew. And what do you think it turned into? A weird monster. He stood 20 feet high, had only one eye, and pink horns that were shaped like a tweezer, and he spouted a stream of polka dot steam through a hole in the top of his beezer. And then you know what? He started to wag both his tails.
Both of them, Grandpa? You mean the monster had 2 tails?
Yep, one tail was striped in delicate blue, the other was spotted brown. The blue one he wagged from side to side, and the brown one up and down. Then he turned to the bottle, and here's what he said.
By the hair on my chin and the horn on my head, come abracadabra, come abracadabra.
And out of the bottle there came right away a pot and a meat axe, a table, a stove, potatoes, tomatoes, red pepper, a clove, Tabasco and mustard, vegetable fat, and a book on the fine art of cooking a cat.
Golly, Grandpa, was the monster going to eat that poor little kitten?
Yep, he sure was.
What did the kitten do, Grandpa?
Well, what would you do?
I'd start to run.
Well, that's exactly what the kitten done.
Grandpa, did the weird monster catch that poor little kitten?
Well, now, I'll tell you. 'Twas a hot summer day when he started to run. He took off with a leap and a bound, and he ran with the speed of a galloping steed in spite of the snow on the ground.
Snow? I thought you said it was a hot summer day.
Well, it was when he started. But that monster chased him all the way from June to January. The monster caught him, put him in a pot, lit the stove, and the stove got hot. Water boiled, water bubbled, and the kitten sat there, mighty troubled. And he said to the monster,
You don't want to eat me, Mr. Monster. Look, you chase me so much, I'm nothing but skin and bones.
But the monster replied,
I like skin and bones.
Then the kitten happened to notice the bottle, and he said to the monster,
You're big and powerful, all right, but I'll bet you're not very clever.
I am so. I'm the cleverest monster in the whole wide world.
But you aren't clever enough to get back in that bottle again.
That's so.
And with that, the monster grew smaller and smaller and smaller. And then he hopped back inside the bottle again.
What did the kitten do, Grandpa?
Well, what would you do?
I'd grab the cork and plug up the bottle.
That's just exactly what the kitten did. Then he took the bottle and threw it in the ocean.
And that was the end of the monster, huh?
Just before that bottle reached the water, bottle hit a rock, busted open, and out came the monster again.
But, Grandpa, that doesn't sound like the monster. That sounds like a dog.
Oh, that's right. The monster had changed himself into an ornery dog. He chased after that kitten.
The kitten started to run?
Yes, sir. And dogs have been chasing cats ever since. Which goes to show you how much trouble can come from having too much curiosity. Meow. Curiosity. Meow. Casper, why don't you open that bottle and see what's inside?
Not me. Don't intend to snoop and pry and risk 9 lives to satisfy my
Curiosity.
Meow.
New Year's Day in Persia was the most celebrated day of the year. Wonderful shows were prepared to entertain the king and the prince. At the end of the program, a lone figure stood before the king with a beautiful horse.
Your Majesty, I beg thee, look upon this wondrous animal.
It is not real, but an ingenious machine that will carry me anywhere I wish, just by turning a peg.
If true, it is indeed a wonderful animal. What is the price?
It is not for sale, sire, but I would exchange it for a portion of your kingdom.
Well, for such a trade, I must know more about this horse. My son, Prince Brahma, will test the animal for me.
The owner started to show the prince how to control the horse. But before he could tell him all, Prince Brahma turned the peg, and away he flew.
He doesn't know how to bring it back. It's a trick to kidnap the prince. Throw this man in jail until my son returns.
As the horse's owner was taken away, the king scanned the skies for the flying prince, but he was out of sight. High above the clouds flew the enchanted horse with the frightened prince. He traveled hundreds of miles, but he couldn't control the animal. He twisted the peg, but the horse continued to fly upward and onward. At last he found a small knob behind the animal's ear. He gave it a turn, and the enchanted horse started to descend. As he came closer to earth, the prince saw he was in a strange kingdom. I will be in danger if I am found, but I can't control the horse. The amazing animal carried Prince Brahma toward a palace courtyard. After I land, I'll turn the peg, and maybe it will fly away again, perhaps right back to my own country. So intent was the prince on the controls that he didn't watch the archway through which the horse flew. He was knocked off the horse into a courtyard. No one saw him, and while everyone crowded about the mysterious horse, Prince Brahma hid in a room. After studying the horse, the king gave out an order.
This is a most unusual animal. I shall give it as a gift to Princess Serena. Perhaps then she'll be my bride. Take the animal to the stable until I'm ready to give it to her.
Prince Brahma could hear the king's orders, and now he realized his chance of escaping was gone. Then he heard someone sobbing. He discovered that he was in the room of Princess Serena. She was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. She looked up and saw the prince staring at her.
Who are you?
I'm Prince Brahma. I come from far away. Don't let them know I'm here.
Oh, did my father send you to rescue me from King Agmir?
No, but perhaps I can help. Tell me how you came to this place. Princess Serena then told Prince Brahma the story of how she was captured by the powerful King Agmir. She must marry him or be put to death. I have an idea. If you pretend to be ill, the king will have to postpone any decision until you're well. I'll hide out in the city and return when the time is right. The princess agreed, and she acted as if she were in a trance. And soon the whole palace was alarmed. Word got to the king about her illness.
Send for the best doctors in the kingdom.
Each doctor who came tried to cure the young girl, and each failed. King Agmir sent out a call to physicians from other lands. One day, a strange doctor came to the palace.
I can cure the princess, but I must attend her alone.
When the doctor was alone in the sick girl's room, he spoke to her. Princess Serena, arise, for it is time for us to leave.
Prince Brahma, it is you?
Yes, Serena, but we must play the game for a while yet. Now we will see the king.
Sire, you see she is almost cured already. Now, some special, unusual gift from you may complete the treatment.
How fortunate. I have been saving a most unique horse to give to the princess.
So the enchanted horse was brought to the palace.
It's beautiful. May I sit in the saddle?
Of course, my dear, it's yours.
Prince Brahma helped Princess Serena up on the horse. Then he turned to the king.
You see, sire, she is cured. Now for my fee.
Of course, good doctor. What is your wish?
I wish the princess myself. He jumped behind Serena.
Never. She is mine. Guards, seize him.
But the guards gaped in wonder as the horse rose from the floor and soared away. Out over the fields and mountains the prince and princess flew. After many hours, Prince Brahma looked below and saw the palace of his father. The enchanted horse had brought them home. The king was delighted to see his lost son and welcomed the princess. Prince Brahma told his father that Serena had consented to be his bride. The happy king released the owner of the horse and granted him a part of the kingdom in exchange for the animal. Later, when Prince Brahma and Princess Serena were married, the king gave them the mechanical animal as a wedding gift. The young people rode away to have many more wonderful adventures with the enchanted horse.
in the forest on the shores of the great lake we call Lake Michigan lived an Ottawa Indian boy. The boy had a name, but everyone had forgotten it. They called him Lazy Bones, but they said it with a smile, for the boy wasn't really lazy. It was just that he was always watching, always wandering by himself. Sometimes he would watch the women pounding corn into meal. Sometimes the boy watched the men before a hunt making arrowheads out of flint. But the boy didn't help them. Instead, he went by himself, far into the woods, always quiet, always watching. He saw where the red squirrel hid its nuts. He saw where the deer drank and where the wolverine left his big paw marks. He had one friend, a little girl named Gray Fawn, and he told her stories about the woods.
The woods and I understand each other. The trees are my friends. The birds and bees are my friends, and the animals come at my call. Oh, ooh, for they are all my friends.
One morning, Gray Fawn went to gather berries, and by late afternoon she had not yet returned. The men of the tribe found her moccasins near the lake, but they didn't find Gray Fawn. The chief, her father, cried angrily, "She must have been captured by the Saginaws." The men painted their faces and prepared for war. While the men prepared for war, the boy called Lazy Bones went to the shore where Gray Fawn's moccasins had been found. He said to himself, if Gray Fawn had been captured, she would have dropped her berry basket. I don't think she was captured. I think she took off her moccasins to go wading. He looked along the shore until he found a footprint in the mud. He said, she came out here and couldn't find her moccasins. He sang,
my woodland friends, tell me where is Gray Fawn? Which way did she go? Oh, tell me, please, that you know and your signs I will follow to her. Oh, Gray Fawn and I are your friends.
When the boy sang the song, a porcupine that had been gnawing young willow shoots stopped and stared at him. The boy said, I think Gray Fawn went this way to gather willow splints for a basket. He looked, and he found places where the willow shoots had been broken. He followed the trail among the willows into the forest.
My woodland friends, tell me where is Gray Fawn?
A squirrel ran down a tree trunk and stopped, his nose pointing. The boy looked and saw where Gray Fawn's bare feet had disturbed the leaves.
Which way did she go?
A rabbit jumped out of some bushes, and the boy looked and saw where Gray Fawn had pushed through. He thought, she knows she is lost and is too frightened to look where she's walking.
Oh, tell me, please, that you know and your sign I will follow to her. Gray Fawn, Gray Fawn.
Just then a flock of crows began to scold angrily. The boy went to the noise, for he knew that crows will scold when they're disturbed by someone who has no weapons. There, under a tree, he found Gray Fawn. The boy took Gray Fawn by the hand, and they set out for home. See, there! And when the men saw the children, they laughed with relief and joy. And the chief, Gray Fawn's father, put his hand on the boy's head and said, now I will give this boy a name. I will call him Little Hawk, for he has the sharpest eyes of all the Ottawas.